We are back after a week off. I'm partly recovered from my illness, but I'm well enough to record. First week of in-season podcasting I've missed, I think, since last Christmas, which is bleak. But today's show, we're going to be covering Grant Williams. He has torn his ACL out for the season, also torn his meniscus, maybe torn more ligaments in his knee. We are still waiting for full news there. But we're going to be discussing the impact of that Grant injury, potential replacements. Then, on a more positive note, Lamelo Ball, Brandon Miller, the breakout, what Hornets fans have been wanting to see for years. It feels like it's finally happening. So we're going to get into all of that on today's episode. Sam, how have you been doing? How have you been enjoying Hornets basketball the last 2 weeks? It's been 2 weeks since I spoke to you.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think since we last talked, it's like a weird. Maybe it's because the team did go on a break themselves, like that 3 or 4 days off. It feels like a lot of things we were talking about then are things of the past, like the slow starts, Josh Green. Those little things have shown. Even like Miller and Lamella, like you mentioned, are looking way more positive than they were since the last time we recorded.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Miller, we'll get onto it later, but he was just, there was a lot of panicking. There were some poor shooting numbers. But if you looked at all like the information behind it, he was just shooting poorly. He was just in a shooting slump. That was literally it. He was shooting, I think, 26% on wide open threes. And Brandon Miller, I think, for the last 3 games, has shot 56% on all threes. So it's just it was just a little bit of a bump, probably a little bit of a slow start after that injury. But we'll get on to LaMelo and Brandon in a little bit. Let's tackle the first bit of news.
Right.
Grant Williams, like I said at the start, out for the year, maybe probably going to be out at the start of next year too, with this category of knee injury. I tried to look up players who tore their ACL, meniscus, and also like additional ligaments at the same time. And I didn't have that long today, but I found 4 names: Sean Livingston, Derrick Rose, Dario Saric, and Kawhi Leonard. And those are 4 names whose careers were all impacted from that point onwards from their knee injury. This isn't just an ACL tear. When you blow out your knee like Grant has, the fact that he could get up and run over to the bench on that knee when like nothing in their left works, by the way, is freaking crazy. Like I see normally people with that, they just lie on the ground and like get carried off. I don't even know how his knee worked to do that. It was really tough to watch, and I'm pretty devastated for the team, for Grant Williams. This is just not the thing that anybody needed or anybody wanted to see.
Yeah, it's seeing seeing the value of what he brings defensively throughout this like early part of the season. It's gonna be sorely missed, like sorely missed. And then when you look at some of the better lineups the Hornets have offensively, he's in all of them.
Yeah,
right? I know they've been missing some key guys throughout the year, but Grant Williams has been one of, if not the only rock throughout like all of it, like all of these games so far. And then when you look forward, it's like, okay, who can do what he does? And I don't know anyone on the roster currently.
No, there is nobody.
Grant
there is nobody.
Yeah.
He is someone who you can throw him on Giannis Antetokounmpo, Evan Mobley, Pascal Siakam. He can stretch the floor for you as a stretch 5. He can even defend, or he could before, like defend a little bit on the perimeter. He was a pretty unique player. He could handle and pass. He could make plays in the short roll. He was, like you said, defensively the lead communicator for this team. Like you could see him, you could hear him out there. And since he came to the Hornets last year and this year, he is the best net rating on the team of any player, including Lamelo Ball and Brandon Miller. I think this season he is plus 17.8. So the Hornets are plus 17.8 points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. Last year, I think he was around like plus 10, plus 12, which if you remember how bad last year's team was, that was incredible. And a lot of it does come from his ability to play as like a good screener, shooter, dribble handoff partner for Brandon Miller, Lamelo Ball. So I don't think this is like going to just impact the Hornets team. I think you could see here impact on like those 2 young guys as well, because they've lost one of their key dribble handoff like partners who was absolutely dangerous in that action.
Yeah, and when he's been, on the floor with Diabate, let's say, um, playing the power forward, you can see Grant really like opening up his game, right? Like he's free to do more things offensively. And then when he is that small ball five and Diabate's out or Taj Gibson is out and you have Grant carrying the load down there, he is super dedicated to like drawing in the opposing team's big, keeping them busy and occupied, setting screens. Like his busy work, I don't think it could be replicated by anybody in the front court. Right.
No, because you need to have awareness to scale your role, like as and when. And a lot of NBA players is like, when I'm on the court, I play this way. Yep. And Grant isn't like that. Like you said, he scales what he does depending on what the team needs because he's intelligent. And there's just not many people who can do that with his skill set.
No, not at all. And, I'm not a fan of, him making out with the basketball every time there's a free throw. I'm not a fan of the ball don't lie stuff, but I am a fan of him and what he brings. And it's going to really suck. We're recording before they played tonight, right? They're playing Orlando tonight. So, we'll see what they look like. You'll see. People listening will see what they look like. But that's going to be a really, really big miss, especially without Bridges as well. Like they've the front court is really going through it early on.
And I don't want to sound too knee-jerk, hyperbolic, but I honestly, I do worry about like Grant Williams' career from this point forward because of the nature of this injury. If it was just an ACL, sure, it's a concern, but Grant Williams is not someone who can really afford to lose a step. Like he was already one of the slowest players, and there's some people argue, well, he doesn't need athleticism and speed to be effective, and I get that. But equally, when you are at such a deficiency already, if you lose that, which I just can't see any world that he doesn't, like with the way this goes, with this severe level of knee injury, those people can be hurt just as much as like the Derrick Rose, crazy athlete types, right? Who suddenly don't have that burst anymore. And it just says like not only going to be unavailable for this year, probably I would guess would be ramp up slowly for next year. And it just really hurts this team because he was a valuable player on the floor who could be counted on. He brought value off the floor. And there's a real chance now, and I hate saying this, but there's a real chance that he's like now just a bad contract. And when he comes back and he's finding his way, he's got not after this year, he's got 2 more years, around 13 million per year. So next year and the year after. And he goes from being an asset who like loads of teams would want, or that he would help the Hornets, to now he might just like be an afterthought who struggles and like the team can't even maybe get rid of him if he comes back and he's, struggles to re-find his form. So like, that's me just doing my like classic, something bad has happened. This is going to be like the worst possible outcome because that's what kind of happens to this franchise. And we've got conditioned to that. And I really hope Grant Williams proves me wrong, but there's a world in which that does happen, that he just comes back and it's just, this is taking away too much of an edge from his game.
Yeah, I mean, he's a physical player. So, yes, the explosion and all that stuff is key, but, he's going to be knee knocking. Like, he's going to have collisions. He's going to get tangled up trying to fight screens. And how his lateral quickness will be impacted by this, time will tell. His mental confidence in his knee as well when he gets back, how he operates then. Grant seems to be a super solid, headstrong guy, but you don't really know till you know when you're faced with this type of adversity. So, yeah, it's a huge loss. And the contract you mentioned, it's cool the Hornets have some leeway to make a roster move if they want to, but they still owe him another 2 years, 13 million next year, 14 million the year after. Like, that's not nothing. And I think the Hornets' future still could go in a few different directions. And it'll be interesting to see how his involvement now factors into all of that. Because he's one of those guys that, as a veteran player, he's still only 25. He seems older than he is. So maybe the fact that he is in his mid-20s will err on the side of it not being a long-term injury issue, where if he was more like 28, 29, 30 years old, it'd be more like a debilitating injury. But by the time his contract's up, he'll be 29. So it's like, all right, I think he fits the overall age profile of the team when you're looking to building something year over year. But Yeah, man. If the injury is anything significant, it's like beyond the year. This year, it could make for some awkward conversations
Yeah.
next season or this offseason.
And look, I will have said, and a lot of people did say the same thing about Cody Martin, right?
Yeah,
Who had
true.
a season and a half off with this like unknown hip knee issue. It changed on the injury report. They didn't quite really seem to know what the root of the issue was. And even when he came back, he was like being managed really carefully. And Cody Martin has come back.
Yeah, he did.
And I would say if I watch him now, I don't see a particular drop in athleticism, speed. For me, he looks just like the same Cody Martin he was probably in that year that he got the contract. So, like, I think we as fans are probably like quick sometimes to always go to the worst case scenario. And it's just difficult, I think, to know. Like, we just don't know. All these players are affected differently. The nature of all these injuries are different. People recover at different speeds. I think it's who knows? But there's an element of risk with this that the Grant Williams that we knew might be no longer. That is one outcome.
Yeah, it'll be a big miss. Very, very big miss.
In terms of what the Hornets do to replace Grant Williams, they can apply for a 6.5 million player exception, and they could go out and sign someone. They could claim someone off waivers with that exception. The other option is that they rock with what they have. So they've got Miles Bridges, T. Salon, who are the natural power forwards. They've got Musa Diabate, who can maybe masquerade at power forward sometimes. It was a lot easier when Grant Williams was out there, and he's not going to be. And then you've got the likes of kind of like Brandon Miller or Cody Martin, who, depending on the matchups, could maybe play some power forward. How do you see the Hornets going here? What do you think they're going to do?
I think so. What I would do, I don't know what they'll do, but I know what I would do, and just give the keys, so to speak, to Jean until Miles Bridges is back. For me, this season is all about learning, not about expectations or playoffs. It's about learning and learning what you got, and for the individual, like, for the folks evaluating the talent, learning what you have, right, and then for the players, learning the game and learning to play with each other. And this is a really bad situation, but it's also an opportunity to see what you have for an extended period of time with Tejan Salon at your power forward until Bridges is back. Then you can kind of, recalibrate things a little bit. But I'd feel comfortable going with that route for now. Because honestly, bringing in another power forward to me doesn't move the needle. I would rather give the minutes, the experience to the young guy, and hopefully build something that you can build something now that would pay off next season.
So I think that will be probably the popular vote among Hornets fans is let's play. Well, maybe not for those who still have hopes of reaching the play-in, because T. Salon playing heavy minutes probably isn't going to help that for this year. I mean, the list of like veteran replacements, what you can get in the free agent market. I mean, I can read you a list of names right here. You've got like Thad Young, Bob Covington, Jay Crowder, Jalen McDaniels, former Hornet, bring him back.
Run it back.
Just joined the G League. Chuma Okeke, who's with the Knicks. He's probably the name I think is most interesting and probably most similar to Grant in some ways. It's not a great list, right? And all those guys, I would say, they might be better than Salon right now, but like you say, that they're top gaps for the most part. Like Thad Young, Covington, Crowder are, could be done as NBA players, right?
Yeah.
The only thing the counterpoint against Salon playing heavy minutes is that this was a player who at the start of the year, I think we all thought, maybe not we all, but a good number thought was going to be in the G League, right? And you're now going to be playing Salon heavy minutes against all-star level players. And what happens to his confidence? Like, is he ready for that? Because if you start putting him out there as a, youngest player in the NBA, completely out of his depth, playing major minutes, like, I just don't know. Like, what if he just completely loses that confidence? What if he starts turning down 3-point shots, doesn't want to dribble, Like, is that the best thing for his development? I think only they will probably know from seeing him, from knowing him.
Mm-hmm.
But I just do think there was an element of risk there of just like, if it's a video game, yeah, of course you play T. John Salon. But when there's real life things going on and the expectations of him at the start of the year and what he would have to do as like a major minute player, there is an element of risk there that you could just like break the guy.
You're not wrong, and we've seen him start, and it hasn't gone well, right? But in my like fantasy booking of this whole thing, we know Bridges is going to be reevaluated in about a week.
Yep.
Right. So that includes that's Orlando on the 25th. That's Miami the 27th. That's New York the 29th. Atlanta the 30th, and then you have Sunday, Monday before a week. So let's say hypothetically, Bridges misses Orlando, Miami, Knicks, Hawks. And that's the run. Theoretically, going to Tejan saying, listen, you have 4 games of window. This is your run. You're going to make mistakes, but we're not going to kill you for it. Like, this is your opportunity to learn for 4 games. It's your opportunity to make the most of it. Because they're going to lean on him when Bridges is back, unless there's a roster move anyway. It's not like he's going to follow the rotation like we saw Book Knight do back in the day.
No, he's gonna play for.
So for confidence, I think saying to him, look, this is the plan. This is your opportunity right here, right now to get it in and make the most of it. I think I could see a scenario where that works out for him. Just from a confidence point of view. I don't, who the hell knows if his shots can be falling during that time, but knowing that if he makes a mistake, he's not going to the bench right away. That could help him power through some of those rookie mistakes during this run.
I understand that, and I think you're right. I think they will create that type of environment. I don't think they're going to be benching him for making mistakes or anything of that nature. And I'm sure his teammates will be super encouraging. But like, we've all been in those scenarios where people are going, "Oh, keep going, keep going. You're doing really well," and you're out your depth, and they're trying to encourage you because they're trying to make you feel better and trying to give you confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that just like makes you doubt yourself even more. So I think my concern isn't even about the other players or the coaching staff. It's about T-John in his own mind, right? He starts questioning, I'm not ready for this. Like, was this the right move for me to come across here? Like, you just have a risk. And he seems pretty headstrong. He does, everyone's talked about he's got the eye of the tiger. He's a confident guy. We've seen that. And we saw that in preseason. But we've also seen this season where he has turned down some shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at times he has looked, he's even said post-game, or people have said, like, we need to tell T-John to keep shooting. So that sign that there is something getting in his head at some point this year. And yeah, they will know. I just hope whatever they do, they protect the guy. And like, at some point they might need to try and protect him by not playing him if it goes really badly. But like you say, hopefully it's only for a week, and then he goes back to a lower minute role, playing 18 minutes per night.
You know what? Would you rather take just, it's like red, I don't want to say this because it's like has like weird coded language to it. I was gonna say red pill, blue pill, but we're not gonna do that. You have option A. Tejan is a starter, and he shoots the ball, like he shoots 40% during this stretch. Just like super solid, nothing crazy, spot up, few attempts in a game, nothing insane, just really solid offensively. Or option B, he performs like just really solid defensively. Like, I think there's more value in him today as a defender than a shooter, given what we're seeing from the backcourt right now and what we're missing, or what the Hornets will be missing from Grant Williams. Like, would you rather have him excel offensively or excel defensively during the stretch?
Oh, that's a good question. If it's either or, I actually think his defense has been okay to this point. This is the thing. I don't think the defense has been the issue. I think the speed of the game, decision making, and like just being an efficient offensive player, for me, that's where there's a greater need for growth. So actually, which is very unlike me, I'm actually going to go for the offensive side.
Okay.
Because if we can see the game, not just the shooting, like percentages, but if we can see the game is slowing down for him and he is making better decisions, better cuts, better plays in the dribble handoff, being less turnover prone, better plays in transition. If I can see that, then like I'm happy with the defense that we've like already had. There's obviously been issues, but I think his level of effort, competitiveness, his switchability, I think that's been pretty good. The issue that he has is the communication side, which Grant nailed so much. Like, he is learning language in a league he's played in the first time, playing against guys he's never ever played against, and he's 19 years old, like trying to like call out coverages. I mean, it's just nailing down all the details to be which you need to be a good defensive team. That's the challenge for him.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. I think, last 5 games, Grant 8 attempts a game, 8 field goal attempts a game. Tajon during the same stretch, 3. So where he lands in that mix, just the shot distribution, I'm curious how that plays out as well. If we just see Melo and Miller just shoot up with the attempts, I don't know if Cody or Josh Green makes up for it. But there's shots to be had, and I'd be curious to see who steps up and takes them.
And the shame is like
I'd prefer Salon what didn't take the chance to be like, the shots is I'm gonna take some shots. I would prefer if he was like, let me just be in the right place at the right time. But if he has it on the night. Like, let him cook.
And like you said, I think what we especially see now, and we've seen it because Mark and Nick haven't been playing, is the Hornets have a lot of the same threat, which is threes, right?
Yeah.
Like Brandon Miller, Lamelo Ball. It's all about generating 3-point looks, and teams are just eventually going to like really key into that. And every time someone else goes down, like Grant Williams, it makes it that much easier to like just put 2 on the ball and take away the 3 from Brandon Miller, Lamelo Ball. So I think that's the real concern is long term when you look at building this team. People have always asking me questions about the draft next year. Like, I think they need to add some interior presence. And I don't mean a big, I just mean someone who either drives it or gets the foul line or can score at a high rate in and around the lane. Mm-hmm. I feel like they need that because everyone knows at the minute they're driving to pass. Like, and they still can't stop it, which says how good some of the play has been from the other two. But like every time one of these guys goes down, that just gets that little bit harder and easier to take away.
True. Very true.
What do you think about Cody Martin, Brandon Miller playing some power forward? Do you think they're going to end up kind of going small that way?
I think it depends on the matchup. I think you can get away with it against Miami, right? Just let me pull the schedule up. So like Orlando, maybe Miami, you can get away with it. I think you have a tough time against New York with that. Atlanta probably can get away with that here and there. So it just depends on the matchup. I like Brandon Miller, Cody Martin. They have the toughness for it. Right. But I don't know. I think you're just kind of setting yourself up for a long night and then potentially putting some of those guys in foul trouble as well. Yeah. Like taking dogs off the court late game, potentially.
I think Cody Martin more so than Brandon Miller. I think, he's shown the ability to guard some fours and some bigger wings at times. And, again, this is going to hurt the team's spacing. Like, no matter what these options are, and this is Salon and he's on, like, these are not, if it's Diabate or Cody Martin, these are not shooters. It's going to make the floor a lot smaller for some of their, higher usage offensive players. So it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, hopefully we get some good news from Mark Williams and Nick Richards in their new assignment.
Well, they've been sent to the G League to practice, so I feel that feels like a good step. Mm-hmm. Getting on court and doing some teamwork. So that's a positive step. I think sounds like they'll be back in the next week to 10 days here.
What do you do with Diabate?
Well, I mean, one option with this player exception they have is they can sign Diabate using the $6.5 million player exception. That would make him a restricted free agent at the end of this year, where they can hopefully hash out a deal. That's one way to do it. And you can then do that without having to waive anybody, which is like one of the benefits. I mean, Jeffries is still on the team, believe it or not. Like, you could just waive him and sign Diabate tomorrow, and then you could sign him to a 2-year deal. And if you sign him to a 2-year deal, then you retain his early bird rights, which gives you some added flexibility for like re-signing him. And it also gives you maybe 2 years on a lower value contract. I think he'll end up on the team eventually. I just don't see any real need to fast forward through to like doing that now when he can play 50 games on a 2-way.
Yeah.
Like, so why not? Yeah, like let's just see how these other things play out, because like another injury that could change the dynamic again, right? So yeah.
All right. Now I think what one conversation I'm excited to have is when all the centers are healthy again.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I don't know. I'm excited to see what that looks like. How Mark Williams looks when he returns. Can Nick Richards pick up where he left off? And is Diabate for real or not? Like, I think that's gonna be a fun conversation once all the boys are back.
All right, enough for the negativity. Let's move on to part 2. Lamelo Ball, Brandon Miller. It's been quite a week for the two. Lamelo Ball had a 50.5 rebound, 10 assist game in the close loss to Milwaukee Bucks. Brandon Miller had multiple 30-point games, setting himself a new career high. And he, like I say, bounced back last 3 games, playing extraordinarily well. Who do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Lamelo? Do you want to start with Brandon? I'll say also with Lamelo, like he also got benched in the same week. They had 50 points, right? Which is interesting.
Like
There's
Towns.
A lot of ways we can go here.
It's like Karl Anthony Towns all of a sudden. Let's do Brandon Miller. Let's do Brandon Miller because there's some concerns about him at the start of the year coming off the injury. So let's get him out the way first.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd love to come in with like some incredible, he's made this adaptation, he's doing this differently, and this is why he's finding success. A little bit of this is just he's shooting the ball really well. And he's hot right now. Like some of the threes that he's making are deep, are movement threes, are close contested threes. He's been absolutely excellent all year. Like if you look at the synergy stats, spot ups, he's rated as excellent. They make 18% of his shot attempts. He's shooting 47% on all spot up shots. That's very good. In transition, he's shooting 55%. That's also excellent. Even off screens, which has been one of the big changes to his offense this year, he's at 48.5%. So he is just finding every way to affect the game from beyond the arc and a little bit in the mid-range still. Still not getting to the rim at all. And when he gets there, like it's pretty bad. He's 50%, I think, at the rim. He's shooting just 35% on layups, Brandon Miller. He's 6'9" and can like jump like a crazy man. And he's shooting 35% on layups. It's pretty interesting. But look, he's been shooting the ball extraordinarily well and like looks confident taking higher volume of shots. Because that's one thing last year, if you remember, Steve Clifford is like, we want him to shoot more. He tries to get his teammates involved like too much at times. Like want him to be more selfish. And looks like he has taken a bit of a step in that area this past week.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So like the last 5 games, he's 20 attempts a game.
Yeah.
LaMelo's 25. So the backcourt is putting up 45 shots a game. Like, so when you talk about like the makeup of the team and how we talked about how Grant Williams is going to be missing time, I think LaMelo and Brandon Miller are going to be first in line to take up those vacated Grant Williams 8 attempts a game. I think you can just write down in pen an extra 8 towards the backcourt because those shots are going to be available for those guys for sure. And it's so encouraging because this is the future. And we've been waiting for it to click, both these guys to click at the same time. What does that look like? We didn't really get to see it last year because of LaMelo's injuries, but we're seeing it now. And how long, like, is this sustainable basketball? I don't know. I hope it is. It's really fun to watch. But I don't know if history's on our side in that one, right? Like, it's a lot of shots a game for these guys. But no, it's the confidence, the chemistry, it's all there with him and LaMelo. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Like you said, those two guys taking that many shots right now, they kind of have to. Because like Trey Mann's been out as well. He's another like scorer, which this team has. And the team, even though it was deeper, is not that blessed with like offensive options. And look, I'll be the first one to sometimes say like, certain players need to be less kind of like centric, just offense around them, and to get more teammates involved. And I still think back to some of those Spurs teams and those Warriors teams. Like those are the teams that I think are incredible and achieve incredible success over a long period of time, rather than the James Harden Rockets, who were kind of very much focused around like one guy doing incredible things. And but right now, like this team just doesn't really have any other options. Like you don't want Cody Martin or Josh Green like forcing up more shots, because those guys are they take what's given to them. They're type players, right? They're not guys who go out and really get you shots. And Brandon Miller has stepped up to do that really well. The big fly in the ointment for me is like the pick and roll. His most used possession is him running pick and roll, right? 28%. That's almost a third of his possessions running pick and roll. He's shooting just 32% from those pick and roll possessions and then 11% turnover rate. And that kind of matches the eye test. Like there's a lot of ball bouncing at times. The offense gets stagnant. He doesn't really have the dribble, the handle, the creativity to kind of like beat his man out of the pick and roll, or, he ends up dribbling off his foot at times, gets a little bit loose with it. Like he's a good passer, but I think more like a better reader of space when he's like catching it and he knows the defense needs to rotate. And just right now, for him to take the next level jump, to be more than just a really high level outside shooter and mid-range shooter, like even if the rim stuff never comes online, which I kind of don't think it probably will, at least like can never be good, him being able to play more pick and roll and improve that handle, I think is a big development area for him. And they're trying to encourage him to do it, and it's a growing process right now.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing that could hurt without Grant Williams. Like who's that pick and roll partner going to be, during the stretch, and who's going to set those screens and create those best opportunities when Brandon Miller's operating out of pick and roll. So that's gonna be something to monitor, right?
Yeah.
It's really disappointing that he's not getting to the free throw line, like at all.
No.
Like so the last 5 games, he is 1.2 free throw attempts. Like that's that a single, like one is crazy. Like you just farming and once a game. That is nuts. And to Lamelo's credit, he's near 8, just for context, during this same stretch. So, Brandon hasn't missed a free throw, to be fair to him, during this run. So that's good. But
it's a lot easier when you're only taking a handful.
Yeah. I don't know. Ask Diabate about that. The little Mason Plumlee show.
Oh dear.
His face the other night. My friend texted me. Like Diabate was cooking, and just as my phone lit up, Diabate was at the free throw line and missed 2 free throws. Like, oh no, I feel like he just got jinxed. But it doesn't seem to bother him.
Don't disrespect Mason Plumlee's free throw shooting like that.
Right-handed Plumlee. My bad.
Okay, right-handed Plumlee you can compare to Diabate. Left-handed Plumlee, that thing was money.
My guy. Shout out to Plumlee, bro. I miss her. Hornets could use him right now, high key. But no, Brandon operating like this is so great. What game was it, man? Where he just could not. He took or was it Orlando? Yeah, where he went 1 of 11. Like that was the last game before this run, and he just kept going to it, and it wasn't gone. The shot just wasn't there. And then from that point on, we saw the slow incremental growth, and then just off to the races. And
when it's not on, it kind of looks. That's when people start going, why doesn't he get to the rim more? How's he not got to the free throw line? Like, why is he turning the ball over? Because those things like stand out a lot more. And then when he's on, people just kind of like forget about that. And it's like, oh, look, Brandon Miller's got 20, 30 something points. That is just the kind of style of play he is. And yes, it's imperfect, but it's also like incredibly valuable in so many ways because it's so scalable around a high usage player, because he can play off ball so well, which playing off ball is a skill, and it's not something a lot of great players come to the NBA are used to doing because they've always had the ball growing up. And that's what makes, I think, Brandon Miller one of like the best future complementary players. And that's why he fits really well next to Lamelo. So I think he will fit very nicely on any future US Olympic teams as well, because he can provide that role that not a lot of players can do. But yeah, I can understand people's frustration with, like, say, turnovers, pick and roll game, getting to the rim. But I mean, he has taken his gradient of difficulty on his threes. I think I had this in a piece. Like, he is taking way less corner threes, a lot more above the break threes, a lot more guarded threes. And, it's hurt his percentage a little bit, but he really seems to have found a groove here. If he can keep this going, I don't know if he can keep this going because this is like crazy. But if he can keep something close to this going, that would be a pretty incredible turn, just because like the volume and gradient difficulty gone up so much since last year.
Yeah, and I still think he gets those 40-point games. Got really close a couple nights ago, 38. I think he's going to crack 40 this year more than once.
We'll see. We'll see. I would love for that prediction to come true. All right, let's move over to Lamelo Ball. Let's quickly, and I mean quickly, let's tackle the little elephant in the room of the benching, right? And I'll say that the Buzzer Beater guys had a great podcast. Atticus, Eric, I thought they had a really good podcast earlier this week where they went in a load more detail than we will. So we're just going to touch on it briefly. I guess, just what your quick takeaway thoughts on the benching? Are you one of those you can't bench a star player? I'm okay with Charles Lee doing it. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
At the time, so I have no issue with Charles Lee benching LaMelo Ball. I'm saying that with chest, clean, so everyone knows where I'm coming from. He's the head coach. His job is to win games now and in the future. And if he believes that's the right move at the time and for the future, you got to do it. I back it. I support it. It was the wrong choice. They win that game if he's playing, in my opinion. But for the future, we'll see how it pays off. And I have no issue with them benching LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you. Look, I was ill, so I didn't watch the game live, and I caught back a few days later, and I was able to kind of be a little bit more detached, probably emotionally, than a lot of people were watching it in real time. And what I will say is, when you're on the side that is agreeing with Kendrick Perkins and Gilbert Arenas,
oh no, yep,
you might just want to consider where you are, right? Because there's a lot of people who I see ripping those two for being frauds and just saying stuff, and they're like the only national media people I saw criticizing Charles Lee. Did you see anyone who I really respect in the national media landscape say that was a bad thing to do? I didn't see one person apart from Kendrick Perkins and Gilbert Arenas, who, in my opinion, they are strictly out to get clicks by saying outlandish things, and they don't really analyze the game in a way that I respect.
I think I saw Jeff Teague say something. He's like, "That's Bud." Like Jeff Teague played for Budenholzer in Milwaukee. Charles Lee's like, that's a Bud move, and Bud won a title. So who am I to say Charles Lee did the wrong thing when the guy he learned it from won a title?
And it's not like he didn't do it for any reason.
Yeah,
LaMelo Ball is far from a flawless player. And in that game specifically, he was making bad decisions both offensively and with his fouls as well. And it is a sign, and I've heard other people say this, that Lee obviously felt his message wasn't landing with Ball. He's tried to have that conversation, tried to do it in the film room, tried to do all that in practice. Obviously felt like it wasn't landing, and he had to try and send it in a different way. And the key thing is how does Ball bounce back from that? And I'm glad we're recording now, a little bit more detached from it. Does he all of a sudden, look a forlorn figure? He's unhappy, or does he deal with it the right way and bounce back in a positive way? And he just had a 50-point game. Now, certain people will say, well, that's in spite of Charles Lee. That's fine. But Charles Lee's ability to manage the situation after it happened and to then get Ball to remain bought in and to focus on the right things. There's still been some foul issues. It's not cured it. Okay. But this is not by any chance that it's happened and all of a sudden he's clearly lost Ball and other players on the team. That's not what's happened at all. If you look at the effort from the last couple of games, if anything, it has had a positive effect. And I think that's really what we should be analyzing this through that lens. What effect has it had? LaMelo Ball's just had probably his best game of his career.
And I would we talked about this before we started recording, but I did find it funny that Melo got benched in the fourth quarter, right, in crunch time. The next game goes to overtime and Melo fouls out immediately. Like, that's funny. At the time, it was frustrating, but it's kind of funny.
With a needless foul, right? Going for immediately. A 50-50 ball.
He benched himself the next game. It's outrageous how that's the beauty of sports. Like, only this kind of like randomness can happen in sports. But no, if it ended up being anything detrimental, it would have only reflected poorly on LaMelo. Like, if he let this bother him, I would think lesser of LaMelo if he couldn't handle sitting down for one game, for I know it's NBA Cup, but whatever. One regular season game. And for me, for a team, in my viewpoint, for a team that's not playoff bound, take this opportunity to sit your guys literally and let them learn. So when games really matter, what got them sent to the bench doesn't repeat itself. Because yes, they probably win if LaMelo closes that game. But I don't think one win is gonna. I'll probably come back to bite me saying this, but I don't think the season is gonna be impacted that significantly by one win. Like, they're not gonna be one win from the playoffs, not gonna be one win from the play-in. Like, I don't think it's gonna matter by the time this thing ends up wrapping up. Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough on the benching. We've had our say. You know where we stand. We've got another record. Let's talk about the positive side. Look, Lamelo Ball has continued to play at an extremely high level for most. Well, I'd say for like most part. There are periods of the game where he like disappears, but then like explodes through the TV with like two fists. He is definitely a player who can get hot and starts to feel it. And I mean, this year he's been pretty incredible as a pick and roll player. I think his handle looks a lot tighter. I think everyone's always wanted him to like look more explosive and stronger. And what I actually think he's mastered is like the slowdown step, which we see from like guys like Luka, where he kind of decelerates and is able to use his touch. I think he's shooting this year like 55% on runners, which is a extremely high number. And he's taking them in a pretty high volume for what a lot of teams and coaches don't like. But that's partly down to his like slow down step. Mm-hmm. His isolation scoring is still, I would say, rugged. Like, he doesn't have a go-to move when he's isoing. Like, you see him a few times. There's a Jared McCain possession where he like did all these moves and then had the ball and didn't really have anywhere to go with it and ended up having a shot clock violation. I think he's shooting just 36% in isolations. It's not great from your star player, but he has never been a great isolation player. He's been a guy who kind of scores within the flow of the offense. And that offense, credit to Charles Lee and his teammates, who've been able to get him the balls in a lot of good spots so far this year.
And like I think mine and everyone's concern with him this year was his health and like ankles. And there's been no sign of any of that. Any of the things that kept him off the floor the last 2 years. It's for at least from with my eye, just completely non-existent and completely out of my mind. And even now, after 15, 16 games, whatever it's been, when he drives and hits the floor, I'm not worried about him anymore. Like, I was like, if I was wearing pearls, I would clutch them before. Now it's like, all right, I just assume he's gonna get back up. Like, I have so much confidence watching LaMelo today that I think probably more than I've ever had since he's been a Hornet. And it's there's a comfort in that as a fan, knowing that I think more often than not, something good is going to happen when LaMelo has the ball. And I don't know if we could have really said that before.
Okay, we've had to cut forward our discussion a little short because, as Sam knows, over the course of the podcast, I've not been feeling well at all, and I need to hang up here. So, thank you everybody for listening. We will hopefully catch you next week, and let's hope I'm feeling better once again. Thank you all.